Popular looks-maxing influencer Clavicular has now been hit with a brand new lawsuit. He is being accused of having sex with an underage girl and later on injecting her with an unapproved drug. These bombshell new claims we are going to break down. We'll talk about the response, and we're going to do it all with Johnny Depp's attorney, Ben Chew. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Webb, and this one is against popular influencer Clavicular, real name Braden Peters. Actually, I think the best way to describe who Clavicular is and how much of a presence he has. And this is a guy who I will tell you is everywhere. He's everywhere. He's on social media. He's being interviewed. His rise has just happened so quickly. But I think the best way to describe who he is right from the lawsuit that was filed against him. Yeah, and yes, there are some allegations and there's a narrative put in here based on his description, but this is how the plaintiff in this case describes him. Quote, "The defendant, Peters, is widely known under his social media name of Clavicular. Peters has over 1 million social media followers as a result of his online promotion of looks-maxing, which is focused on improving the physical appearance of his online followers. According to Peters, looks-maxing allows someone to ascend from maybe slightly below average to above average through looks-maxing, so they can achieve the desired amount of wealth for a supermodel to date them. He has claimed that across society we should be advocating for looks. Peters has repeatedly claimed and bragged online about his use of illegal substances, including methamphetamine and ketamine, as well as the use of other injectable medication that is available online. Peters has repeatedly bragged about his slay-maxing, which means sex with women he meets through his fame. Peters has admitted that he often creates online content so he can be pursuing one-night stands when he goes to parties and slay, which is a euphemism for sex. Peters refers to his one-night stands as a pump and dump. Now, by the way, included in that description are apparent links to videos purportedly of Clavicular allegedly saying these things. But according to Instagram, because we just did our own research to give you an idea about how big this guy is, he reportedly has almost 600,000 followers on Instagram, over 145,000 followers on X, almost 930,000 followers on TikTok, over 331,000 on the streaming platform Kick. Now, interestingly, by the way, it was only a few days ago that he was reportedly kicked off of YouTube for allegedly creating new channels after already being terminated previously. People magazine reported that his previous channel was removed, quote, due to content that facilitated access to websites that violates its policies on illegal or regulated goods or services. And Clavicular reportedly admits to using drugs and famously claims he smashed bones in his face with a hammer. It's all part of improving one's physical appearance. So yeah, he's a controversial person, okay? And by the way, talking controversial, he recently reportedly was sent to the hospital after a suspected overdose. Just gives you context about this before we get into the lawsuit. Okay, so I'm going to do an overview of the lawsuit. We're going to break it down, and a little bit later on, I'm bringing on Johnny Depp's attorney, Ben Chew, to talk about it too. The strengths, the weaknesses, the damages. We'll get into it. Okay, so you have this lawsuit that was filed by Alexandra Vasilevna Mendoza, State Court, Miami, and it is against solely Clavicular, real name Braden Eric Peters. And right at the beginning, Mendoza claims that she was a minor under Florida law at the time that some of this allegedly happened, but says she's now 18 years old. Now, it's interesting because the complaint starts off by acknowledging Mendoza comes from a troubled background, that she took to social media at 16 to get sponsorships to support herself financially. So I guess it goes into this idea, which we'll get into, how much she was relying on this, maybe how much she was turning to Clavicular for help, maybe why she continued to stay in touch with him. I think that's the narrative, but let's go through it. And she apparently, according to this, was referred to on social media as Allura or Allura Ziva. So you go to May 2025, and she alleges Clavicular pays her $1,000 to film videos. And again, allegedly 16 years old, claims that Clavicular wanted her to be the female face for looks-maxing, and that Clavicular allegedly helps her create videos and write scripts for her. But apparently, she hadn't met him yet in person. And she claims that's when he arranges for an Uber to bring her to Cape Cod, to Clavicular's parents' house, and she claims not only were Clavicular's mother and grandmother at the home, but with the mother fully aware, there were excessive amounts of alcohol that were served, and she claims Clavicular was under 21. Again, she claims she was underage, okay? And she claims that when she goes to the house, she goes to his room, he supplies her with vodka, she's inebriated, and he has sex with her, and she wasn't able to consent. She alleges that when she wakes up, she finds Clavicular again having sex with her without her consent. She claims she's sent off in an Uber, doesn't see him for 6 months. Fast forward, November 2025. She's out in Miami, and she claims she sees Clavicular. He allegedly compliments her on how her looks have improved through looks maxing. He allegedly invites her and her friends over to his place for a streaming session, says she's ascending, again, this slang term in the culture for improving appearance, that he could help her continue to gain a following online. In the car, she claims that Clavicular and his friends snorted this white, powdery substance. She claims she refused to participate in this. And according to the complaint, they arrive at this place in Delray Beach. It's about an hour away, and I'm going to read the rest of this verbatim, okay? Quote, upon arriving at their destination, Peters attempted to kiss and seduce Mendoza. Mendoza rejected those overtures. Peters continued to tell Mendoza that he could help her with her online presence and took her into a bedroom where he began live streaming on the Kick.com platform. Sitting on the desk was a vial of medication called Aqualix, along with syringes. Peters told Mendoza that he wanted to inject her with this product to melt fat on her cheeks as part of his promise to help her with her online presence through looks maxing. During this session, Peters stated or implied that he was acting with medical authority, including by referring to himself as a doctor or otherwise holding himself out as qualified to perform the injection. The FDA has warned that fat-dissolving injections are not FDA approved and can be harmful. Peters was not a physician. Peters was not licensed to practice medicine in Florida. Peters was not authorized to inject plaintiff with any drug, medication, chemical, or fat-dissolving substance. Peters never notified Mendoza that he was not authorized or licensed to perform injections. Plaintiff did not provide legally valid consent for Peters to inject her. Plaintiff's parent or legal guardian did not consent to Peters injecting plaintiff. Peters nevertheless prepared to inject plaintiff on camera during a live stream session that was streamed on the Kick.com platform. Peters then injected plaintiff multiple times in both cheeks with what he represented to be Aqualix. Peters did not explain to plaintiff that Aqualix was not approved by the FDA for injectable fat-dissolving use or that fat-dissolving injections can be harmful. At the time of the injection, Mendoza was a minor under Florida law and could not receive any injections absent parental consent. At the time of the injection, Peters knew that Mendoza was a minor, as he commented online, "She's still a minor. I'm 19, you." This entire episode was live streamed and remains available to be replayed on the Kick website and platform. Neither Peters nor Kick received Mendoza's permission to stream this session. The video shows that Peters had problems injecting Mendoza. In fact, Mendoza's right cheek has perforated. During the video, Peters stated or suggested that methamphetamine had been added to the injection mixture. After the first injection, plaintiff appeared drugged on camera. Plaintiff believes that she may have been injected with methamphetamine or another undisclosed substance. During this entire session, Peters, through the Kick platform, was receiving, processing, sharing, or financially benefiting from paid viewer engagement, including subscriptions, donations, tips, platform currency, or other monetized activity available through Kick's platform. Now, after this, she does claim that they did see each other other times, claims that he would pay bouncers to let her into bars, get drinks for her, and she claims that she thought all this time that he was trying to help her with her career. And she makes the claim also that these encounters were streamed on Kick. Then, she alleges that in 2026, Clavicular embarks on this campaign to discredit her, and she ultimately loses sponsorships and sponsorship opportunities. That she cites how she signed a contract paying her $15,000 a month with an online trading platform. So this goes to the harm component. And then it says, quote, upon information and belief, Peters' campaign to discredit plaintiff was undertaken in anticipation of plaintiff asserting claims arising from the live-streamed injection and related misconduct. So she's suing Clavicular under 4 causes of action, 4 claims. And I want you to listen carefully because I'm going to talk about this with Ben Chu a little bit more about what is not included in this. So the first is battery, allegedly intentionally injecting her, causing physical and psychological injury. Count 2, intentional infliction of emotional distress. So the alleged injection, the claim is, was intentionally reckless and outrageous. You're talking about something that goes past the bounds of what is acceptable, really egregious conduct. And she claims it caused her severe emotional distress, trauma, humiliation, nightmares, panic, fear, mental anguish. Count 3, fraud. So this is about Clavicular allegedly not telling her he wasn't a licensed healthcare provider and didn't have the authority to inject her before allegedly doing so. And you follow that with the allegation that he didn't tell her that she needed to have parental consent. Allegedly didn't tell her that this drug, Aqualax, was not FDA approved. She argues if she knew all this, she wouldn't have agreed to it. Count 4, this is interesting, unauthorized publication of name and likeness. This is under Florida law. The argument here is that Clavicular allegedly uses her name, her image, or likeness in connection with this live stream, this replay content, that he's making money off of it for profit. She didn't consent, and she's entitled to penalties and damages under Florida law, like royalties and exemplary damages. By the way, also for the other count, she's apparently seeking compensatory damages, restore her to whole, and that she reserves her right for punitive damages, punishment damages, which, by the way, can add up. Now, Mendoza's attorney released a statement saying, quote, "Our client will tell her story through the legal process. In the meantime, we do look forward to hearing from Mr. Peters and his lawyers." While speaking of that, Clavicular's attorney, Steve Kramer, adamantly denies the claims, releasing a statement. "We are aware of the complaint recently filed against Mr. Peters." This is to Rolling Stone. "These are allegations only and remain unproven. Mr. Peters denies the claims and disputes the characterization of events. He will respond through the appropriate legal channels and intends to vigorously defend himself. We will not comment further at this time." Okay, so now is the time where I bring in one of my favorites. I'm so happy to see him again. I'm bringing on Ben Chu, who, as you know, famously represented Johnny Depp, high-profile trial several years ago. We've had him on the show. We've had him on the program so many times since. My good friend, good to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I was telling you before, like, when we talk about high-profile lawsuits, this guy, Clavicular, is massive right now. He is massive. He is getting a following, and getting a following so quickly that I'm very curious to know how this fits into it and what the repercussions can be. And I want to break down this lawsuit. Just generally speaking, you had an opportunity to review it. What do you make of it? What do you make of the allegations?
Jesse, it's great to be on again. I find this complaint quite disturbing, as I'm sure you did, but also puzzling in the sense that it appears to describe, almost in the background section, an alleged sexual assault, which allegedly preceded the incident whereby he supposedly injected her with some fat-reducing drug. So it really begs the question, if she believes that this was a sexual assault, why that's not part of her case in chief.
Why do you think that wasn't included? And I actually did a double take, too, because when I was looking through the causes of action, it was all about the injection. It wasn't, I mean, look, the allegation about this sexual assault when she was a minor, I mean, that's the allegation. That provides context. It provides part of the story. But it wasn't, as far as I could see, and you looked at it too, right? It didn't make up any one of the individual causes of action. Would there be a strategy there?
Well, I think the strategy, to the extent that I don't think there's any time bar issue. I don't think it's a statute of limitations issue. I think by making those allegations, I think you're certainly seeking to poison the jury, the fact finder, against this, against the defendant, Clavicular.
So you think that this is a situation where that whole account could be thrown out, that a jury or a judge wouldn't hear it?
I believe there, in many jurisdictions, I believe in California, where they have a very rigorous process for striking allegations that are not germane to the causes of action. And even in Virginia, where I frequently practice, judges are constantly on the alert for gratuitous allegations, and they seek to strike them. I'll give you one example on not nearly as controversial a case. It was a case involving a property settlement agreement, and there was an allegation in that particular complaint about our client having committed adultery in the course of the marriage. And the judge was quite exercised about that. This was a property settlement dispute. It had nothing to do about the party's conduct during the marriage. And he struck that allegation, and he reprimanded the counsel for raising it in the complaint. So this is what really struck out to me. It seemed to me that if she believes this incident took place, she should have alleged it, and alleged it as a tort.
How do you prove harm? How do you prove the damages? How do you prove what she suffered, or what she claims she suffered as a result of the injection?
That will be challenging. I think it depends. I mean, to the extent that there has been a disfigurement, some kind of a negative effect on her appearance, if she had any skin conditions relating to this. I believe she also alleges that there may have been methamphetamine or some other narcotic as part of this potion that was injected into her. So it may have had some deleterious mental effect on her as well. It could have led to some addiction So that will certainly, I would imagine she would have to have some medical records and probably a medical expert to testify as to the physical damages. And she's, as you know, Jesse, she's also alleging emotional distress, intentional infliction of emotional distress.
And that's a broad term. That's a broad cause of action. Generally speaking, it's so broad that it can encompass a lot of different alleged behavior, but it really has to be, egregious. It really has to go beyond the bounds of decency. And if I were just to tell you the headline, popular looks-maxing influencer injects another influencer in the face with a drug without a license, without her knowing what this was all about. I mean, that's the allegation. I would say, okay, I think that probably could be defined there, but it's not a slam dunk, right? Because I'm looking at it, right, and they say it has to cause severe emotional distress, trauma, humiliation, nightmares, panic, fear, mental anguish. It's a common cause of action, but it's not always the easiest to prove, right?
I completely agree with you, Jesse, and I don't think even on its face, this would, not to use a pun, but even on its face, I don't necessarily think that this rises to the level of stating a claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress. As you note, the standard is incredibly high for that, and I'm not sure that this really meets it. I don't know whether it's thrown out on a motion to dismiss, but it might be.
The counter argument would be, and I haven't seen the full video of this allegedly happening. I've seen what appear to be screenshots online, but it's so difficult to know what's real or not. But they seem to say that this was live streamed, right? That this was recorded on the platform. If there's a video of him allegedly injecting her, and I mean, we'll see what their defense is. I have nothing to say right now that he is licensed to make these injections. I mean, maybe they'll. I haven't seen anything to suggest it, but if he's not licensed to do it, and he injects her, and her parents never consented to this, isn't that the case for her? Isn't that a win for her?
It certainly could be. And to play devil's advocate for a moment, I mean, she has a history with him. So I imagine that she had some sense of his not having any medical training. He was a fellow influencer, albeit of a higher standard, higher status and higher age. So I think there's some issues of fact that a jury is going to have to decide.
If she was underage, or when this happened, or she was, I'm not entirely sure exactly what age she claims she was when this alleged injection happened. Wouldn't she need her parents' consent though? Like, it doesn't even matter what she believed, or?
Yeah, that's a great point. Whether that goes to the battery count or whether that factors into the intentional infliction of emotional distress, I don't know that the interplay between those two things. I do think that there is, perhaps not legally, but in the mind of the jurors, yes, she was a minor. Yes, he was not a minor, but he's not that much older than she is. So this isn't a case of a 40-year-old and a 17-year-old. This is the case of somebody who is only, 2 or 3 years older, as I understand it. And I do think that might affect how a jury sees this.
Which goes to another point. I've seen this video. It was up on it was up on a X page, Clavicular Updates. I don't know if it's genuine or not. It could potentially be. Let me play it real quick.
And what else? Not dating Clav. Just did a little stream together where he injected Aqualix. It was really fun. Super nice. Send me an Uber home right after.
If that's true, there's two ways to look at it, right? One person could look at, she said she had no problem with it, and now she's suing him. This hurts her credibility. The other way of looking at it is, in these types of cases, and if you have alleged victims who are younger, sometimes somebody will say how they feel about something that allegedly happened one way, and then fully grasp it another time. Or, because it can be very complicating how complicated how somebody processes or feels about something or alleged abuse. But the other way of looking at it is, too, if she thought that he was going to help her career, she would say whatever she needed to make sure that he helped her. And when he didn't actually help her, turned on her, according to the allegations, that's when she's like, okay, this is the real truth. I said that on tape, but that's not really how I felt. Talk to me about what we should be thinking there.
Yeah, I'm smiling not because it's a funny situation, but because you and I have talked about this in many different cases. This is a
Right.
case that I think we will have an expert who will just explain to the jury. We'll probably have experts on both sides, and her expert would explain why a victim might behave in that manner and say, I was fine with it. And that could be, consistent with someone who is still a victim. He would have another victim, he would have an expert on the other side to argue, no, that's not the way a real victim would act. So I think this will be a case that not only involves the credibility of the two principals, the plaintiff and the defendant, but I think you're going to see expert testimony.
And particularly, I know I've seen it already on social media, those who have come to Clavicular's defense. She continued to hang out with him. She was with him if there was really a problem. It gets complicated, and it also gets complicated if you're dealing with somebody that young. I'll just say that. In terms of damages, there's parts of this where it seems not only the damages for what she claims happened to her, right, compensatory damages, reserving a right for punitive damages, punishment damages, but is it also trying to get the money that he earned off of their appearances together, and how would that work?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's going to be a part of the case that this was an unauthorized use of her likeness. And I think that is a pretty strong cause of action. It goes back to your point about parental consent, that she was not capable of giving her consent to her likeness being used, on his show, as it were. And it also goes back to your earlier point of why she might include the sexual assault allegation as context or as background, because that's something that she wants to get in the jury's head. That if the jury really believes that he sexually assaulted a minor at the time, they may not care about the niceties of the jury instructions that you and I, spend so much time with judges dealing with it. If they think that he sexually assaulted her, they may just want to punish him, irrespective of everything else, which is why I think a judge should look long and hard about striking those allegations. I mean, it seems to me that you either make the allegations that there was a sexual assault or you don't, but you don't mix it up in a case that involves a completely different set of incidents.
Do you think that she's also, her attorneys are making a basis to go after Kick as well? The Kick is not named as a defendant, but I'm wondering if going after this platform is something we're expecting too.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jesse. And you always look as a plaintiff's counsel, and most of my work is on the plaintiff's side, is you look for deep pockets. And Clavicular is a deep pocket in and of himself, but I would go after the corporate entities as well, because you're talking about another pocket and an entity that's likely to have insurance, which could fund a settlement. And clearly what you're looking at here, if you're really looking after your own client, which I'm assuming that these lawyers are, you don't want to put your client through a trial, because even if she prevails, this is going to be further traumatizing her. And if you can get a good settlement, short of putting her through having to relive the alleged sexual assault, having to relive, being injected on a, before, millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people, you want to do that.
This is not a contract dispute case, right? This is a case involving really disturbing allegations, which makes me wonder, do you think authorities are involved at all? Do you think she went to law enforcement? Because this is blending in. These allegations are blending into the criminal arena.
Yeah, I clearly think, the sexual assault, that's a very serious crime. And the battery, I mean, assuming that this actually happened and there's evidence of it, that he injected her without proper authority or permission since she was a minor and he had no medical background, I would think that also would be a very serious crime that the Florida authorities would be looking into. When that happens, Jesse, as you know, if there's an indictment, it usually results in a stay of the civil case, because then Clavicular, in this case, as a criminal defendant, has a right against self-incrimination. And many courts look at it as unfair to require the defendant to have to testify in a civil case while the criminal case is pending. So for whatever reason, my guess is if this case proceeds and he's testifying in the civil deposition, there's no jeopardy at issue. But it's a great question, because you would think that there'd be a parallel criminal investigation.
Ben, I really appreciate you coming on and breaking this down with me. This has a very complicated case. It has a celebrity aspect to it. That takes it into a different realm. You are the best in the business. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to talk about this with me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jesse. I really appreciate it.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can also check us out on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, Monday through Friday.